The grand chamber of the Galactic Coalition Council buzzed with alarmed voices. Representatives from 27 species sat in tiered seats that curved around a central holographic display. The display currently showed the human warship that had disabled 2 Coalition vessels. This species was classified as pre-interstellar just 50 cycles ago, shouted Representative Krex, slamming a tentacle on his console. How did they advance so quickly? Admiral Zakathul stood in the center of the chamber, his 4 eyes downcast. The defeat of his ships was a personal shame. We underestimated them, he admitted. Our scans show their technology is unlike our development path. They appear to have focused heavily on defensive capabilities and precision weapons rather than raw destructive power. Science Officer Vrina, a slender blue-skinned Lorani with large eyes adapted for the dim light of her homeworld, stepped forward. Unlike most of her warrior species, she had chosen the path of knowledge. "If I may speak," she said, her voice musical yet firm. "The humans only fired after we initiated a deep scan without permission. In many cultures, this could be seen as aggressive." "Are you defending them?" growled Krex. Vrina stood her ground. "I am suggesting we understand them before launching a war. Their captain specifically disabled our vessels rather than destroying them. That shows restraint." The Supreme Counselor, an ancient Drath named Mox, whose species had founded the Coalition 5,000 years earlier, raised a withered hand for silence. "What do we know of these humans?" he asked. Vrina activated her data tablet. "They originate from the 3rd planet of a yellow star in the spiral arm. We cataloged them centuries ago but deemed them too primitive for contact. Approximately 50 years ago, our long-range observers noted their first ventures beyond their solar system. And now they have ships that can defeat our scouts," Mox said thoughtfully. "Admiral, what is your recommendation?" Admiral Zakathul straightened his posture. "We must respond with overwhelming force to contain this threat before they advance further. I recommend a fleet of 15 warships." Meanwhile, aboard the HSS Valiant, Captain Eleanor Webb sat in her ready room, reviewing the battle footage with her senior officers. "They weren't expecting us to fight back," said Lieutenant Commander Williams, pausing the footage at the moment the first alien ship's shields failed. "Look at their response time." Communications Officer Rodriguez nodded. "I've made progress with their language. It's complex, but I believe I've decoded more of their transmission. They referred to us as a newly emerged species and mentioned something about containment protocols." Webb frowned. "Containment? That doesn't sound diplomatic." Chief Engineer Frost scratched his beard thoughtfully. "Their technology is advanced, but in different ways than ours. Their shields use some kind of energy absorption I've never seen before, but they clearly didn't expect our targeting systems to be so precise." "What are our options, Captain?" asked Williams. Webb walked to the small view screen on her wall, which displayed the stars outside. "Earth Command has ordered us to hold position while they analyze the situation. Retreating could signal weakness. Advancing could trigger a larger conflict before we're ready." Rodriguez's console chimed. "Captain, I'm receiving another transmission. Different from the previous ones. I think it's being sent on a frequency designed to avoid detection by their own people." Webb raised an eyebrow. "Put it through." The screen flickered to show Science Officer Vrina. She spoke in careful, measured tones that the translation program converted to English. "Captain of the human vessel," Vrina said. "I am Science Officer Vrina of the Coalition. I am contacting you without authorization. A fleet of 15 warships has been dispatched to your location. They will arrive in approximately 6 hours. Their orders are to neutralize your vessel by any means necessary." Webb leaned forward. "Why are you telling us this?" "Because I believe conflict can be avoided," Vrina replied. "The deep scan we performed is standard procedure in our culture, not meant as aggression. Different species have different protocols. I believe this is a misunderstanding that need not lead to war." After the transmission ended, Webb called an emergency meeting of her command staff. 15 warships, Williams said grimly. "Even with our advantages, those aren't good odds. Can we outrun them?" asked Webb. Frost shook his head. "Not all 15. Based on what we saw of their propulsion systems, they're faster in short bursts, though we might have better endurance. Webb turned to Rodriguez. Do you believe that alien, this Vrina? Could this really be a cultural misunderstanding? Rodriguez considered carefully. It's possible. Many human cultures have different concepts of privacy and personal space. What we consider invasive might be normal for them. Or it could be a trap, Williams pointed out. Get us to lower our guard. Lieutenant Kate Porter, the ship's intelligence officer, had been quiet until now. A thoughtful woman with keen analytical skills, she specialized in understanding enemy psychology. I don't think it's a trap, she said. The transmission was sent on a hidden frequency. That suggests internal disagreement within their ranks. Some don't want this conflict. Webb nodded slowly. Options? We could retreat to Earth space, Williams suggested, and lead them directly to Earth. Webb shook her head. Not an option. We could try to communicate again, Rodriguez offered. Now that I understand more of their language. After they've already sent warships? Williams sounded skeptical. Frost cleared his throat. There is another option. The Hyperion drive isn't just for propulsion. Remember the tests we ran in the asteroid belt? Webb's eyes widened slightly. That was in controlled conditions, Chief. You're suggesting we use it in combat? It's what it was designed for, Frost replied with a shrug. We've just never had the occasion to need it. Webb stared out at the stars again, weighing her options. Earth and its colonies had only recently expanded into this sector of space. They had hoped for peaceful first contact with alien life, but had prepared for the alternative. The Valiant was the most advanced ship in the fleet, with technology that had been developed in secret for decades. The Hyperion drive was approved for defensive use only, she said finally, and defense is exactly what we need right now. She turned to her officers. Prepare the ship for combat. But I want precision, not destruction. If this is a cultural misunderstanding, I don't want to start a war by overreacting. As her officers filed out, Webb sent a message to Earth Command, explaining the situation and her decision. The reply came an hour later. Trust your judgment, Captain. The Valiant represents humanity now. Show them what that means. In her quarters aboard the Coalition flagship, Science Officer Vrina stared at her reflection. What she had done could be considered treason. But after studying the human vessel's actions, she was convinced they weren't the aggressors the Admiral claimed. The humans had disabled, not destroyed. They had communicated instead of continuing to attack. These were not the actions of a hostile species. As the Coalition fleet prepared for battle, Vrina wondered if she had done enough to prevent a war that neither side truly wanted. The 5 officers of the Galactic Coalition stood frozen on the bridge of their scout vessel. On the main display, a ship unlike any they had ever seen floated against the backdrop of stars. Its hull was dark gray, with minimal markings. Its shape, reminiscent of a predatory sea creature from their homeworld. Scan it again, ordered Admiral Zakthul, his 4 eyes narrowing. There must be some mistake. The ship's sensors operator, a slender Medusan named Zith, ran the scan a second time. No mistake, Admiral. The vessel is approximately 700 meters in length. Power readings are unusual. I cannot determine their energy source. Admiral Zakthul clicked his mandibles in frustration. The Galactic Coalition had cataloged every spacefaring race in this sector. This ship belonged to none of them. Weapons capabilities? He asked. Unknown, replied Zith. Hull composition is preventing deep scans. The Admiral considered their options. Protocol dictated that unknown species be approached with diplomatic caution, but also contained. The Coalition had maintained peace for over 3 centuries, by carefully controlling which races gained access to advanced technology. Send the diplomatic envoy. 3 ships should be sufficient. Maintain communication at all times. Across the emptiness of space aboard the HSS Valiant, an alarm sounded on the bridge. Captain Eleanor Webb looked up from her datapad. At 42, she had the bearing of someone who had seen combat, but hoped never to see it again. Her short brown hair was streaked with gray, her blue eyes sharp and attentive. Report, she said calmly. Lieutenant Commander Darius Williams, a tall man with dark skin and steady hands, looked up from his tactical station. Unknown vessel detected at coordinates 2 and 27 Mark 43, now detecting 2 additional ships approaching from the same direction. Captain Webb stood, straightening her dark blue uniform. Composition? Unknown, Captain. Not matching any Earth or colony designs. A tense silence fell over the bridge. The Valiant had been patrolling this sector for months after the disappearance of 3 colony ships. Earth Command suspected pirates but found no evidence. First contact protocol, Webb said clearly. Shields up but weapons powered down. Let's not appear hostile. Communications Officer Sofia Rodriguez, a woman with intense focus and a gift for patterns, worked at her console. Broadcasting standard greeting on all frequencies, Captain. Chief Engineer Alan Frost's voice came through the comm system from the engine room. Captain, these ships are putting out some strange energy signatures. Nothing like our systems. Understood, Chief. Webb turned to her first officer. Your thoughts, Commander Williams? Williams studied the tactical display. They're approaching. In formation. Disciplined. Military. The alien vessels drew closer, their designs organic and flowing compared to the angular human ship. Their hulls shimmered with an iridescent material that seemed to absorb light. Rodriguez's console lit up. Receiving transmission, Captain. Visual and audio, but in an unknown language. Computer is attempting translation. On screen, Webb ordered. The main view screen flickered, revealing a creature unlike anything the crew had seen before. It had 4 eyes set in a chitinous face with mandibles that moved as it spoke. The language was clicking and musical. Rodriguez worked furiously at her console. Partial translation coming through. They're identifying themselves as representatives of something called the Galactic Coalition. Webb stepped forward. Tell them we are the HSS Valiant from Earth on a peaceful mission. As Rodriguez transmitted the message, one of the alien ships moved closer. Captain, Williams warned. They're powering up some kind of scanning beam. Webb frowned. Earth protocols strictly prohibited scanning another vessel without permission. It was considered an aggressive act, as scans could reveal defensive capabilities and weaknesses. Rodriguez, tell them to cease scanning immediately. Before Rodriguez could transmit, the beam hit the Valiant. Internal alarms blared. They're penetrating our outer defenses, Williams reported, tension in his voice. Scanning all systems, including weapons. The translation computer finally decoded more of the alien message. Unknown vessel will be contained according to Coalition protocols until species threat assessment is complete. Captain Webb's expression hardened. The Mars conflict had begun with similar words from the Separatists. Containment had meant imprisonment and worse for many of her friends. Raise. Full shields. Power weapon systems but hold fire, she ordered. On the alien flagship, Admiral Zekthol watched with scientific curiosity as his scan probed the unknown vessel. Interesting, his science officer reported. Their hull contains elements we haven't encountered before. And their power core, it's using principles similar to our early warp drives but with significant modifications. Biological scans? The Admiral asked. Similar to the Terran specimens we collected last cycle. Bipedal, carbon-based. The science officer paused. Admiral, they're raising energy shields and powering weapon systems. Zakathul was unconcerned. Standard response for a species at their development stage. Our containment fields can easily... He never finished the sentence. The human ship moved with unexpected speed, its weapons firing with pinpoint accuracy. Not at the flagship, but at the scanning emitters of the nearest support vessel. The coalition ship's shields flared and collapsed under the assault. A second barrage disabled its engines. Impossible, shouted the weapons officer. Their targeting systems shouldn't be that precise. On the Valiant, Williams reported. Direct hit. One alien vessel disabled but life support intact. The other 2 are powering up weapons. Webb's voice was ice. Target the weapon systems on the second vessel. Minimal force required to neutralize the threat. The Valiant moved again, executing a maneuver that should have been impossible for a ship its size. The second alien vessel fired. but the shots went wide as the human ship seemed to predict their targeting patterns. The Valiant's return fire was surgical, disabling the second ship's weapons while leaving its other systems intact. The flagship began to retreat. "They're withdrawing, Captain," William said, surprise evident in his voice. "Let them go," Webb replied. "Rodriguez, open a channel." When the connection was established, Webb spoke clearly, knowing the aliens would be working. To translate, "This is Captain Eleanor Webb of the human spaceship Valiant. We responded defensively to your unprovoked scan. We have no desire for conflict, but we will defend ourselves. Your vessel's life support systems remain intact. We will leave this sector peacefully if you do the same." She nodded to Rodriguez to end transmission. "Status report," Webb demanded. "Minor damage to outer hull plating. Shields at 87%, Williams replied. "Chief Frost, how did their weapons perform against our shields?" Webb asked. Frost's voice came through with a hint of surprise. "Better than expected, Captain. Their technology is advanced, but different principles than ours. Not better, just different." Webb nodded slowly. "So we just engaged an unknown alien coalition with unknown capabilities and unknown numbers." "It appears so, Captain," Williams confirmed. "Plot a course to Rendezvous Point Delta. We need to report this to Earth Command immediately." Webb looked at the retreating alien ship on the view screen. "Something tells me this isn't over." Across, Space Admiral Zakathul watched the recording of the brief battle again. The human ship had moved and fought with precision that should have been impossible for a species only recently discovered. "How?" he demanded of his science team. "How did they defeat two of our vessels so easily?" No one had an answer. "Send all data to Coalition headquarters," he ordered, "and classify this species as high threat level. The Council must be informed immediately." The Admiral looked once more at the image of the human vessel. For the first time in his long career, he felt something unfamiliar: fear. News of the human victory spread quickly across Coalition space. On thousands of worlds, citizens watched recordings of the battle, seeing for the first time a small human vessel defeat 15 of their most powerful warships. Fear mixed with fascination as speculation ran wild about the mysterious humans and their impossible technology. In the Grand Council chamber on Xandaria, the Coalition capital world, an emergency session had been called. Representatives from all 27 member species gathered to discuss the human threat. "Our analysts have reviewed the battle recordings hundreds of times," Admiral Zakathul reported, his voice subdued. "The human vessel appears to have used some form of temporal manipulation technology. It did not simply move quickly. It partially phased out of our reality and reappeared elsewhere." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Such technology had been theorized by Coalition scientists, but deemed impossible to implement safely. Supreme, Counselor Mox leaned forward. "How did a species we classified as primitive just decades ago develop such technology?" Science Officer Vrina stepped forward, having been summoned to provide insight. "That is the question that should concern us most. Our records show humans were using chemical rockets 50 years ago. Now they possess technology we believed centuries beyond their reach." "They must have stolen it," Representative Krex insisted. "Or received help from outside forces." Vrina shook her head. "The design principles are unlike anything in our databases. If they received help, it was not from any species known to the Coalition." Admiral Zakathul's mandibles clicked in agitation. "Whatever the source, this technology makes them dangerous. We must mobilize the entire Coalition fleet to contain this threat before they expand further." "And yet," Vrina said carefully, "they had the power to destroy our ships but chose not to. They disabled weapons and engines while preserving life support systems. These are not the actions of a naturally aggressive species." The chamber fell silent as the Council considered this observation. Meanwhile, across the stars, activity surged throughout human space. On Earth, Admiral Christopher Bennett stepped into the United Earth Defense Council chamber, where 12 men and women representing Earth's unified government awaited his report. The Valiant successfully defended itself, Against a coalition fleet, Bennett announced. The admiral was a tall man with silver hair and the weathered face of someone who had seen many battles. Captain Webb's report indicates the Hyperion drive performed beyond expectations. Defense Minister Gloria Parker leaned forward. Casualties? None, on our side. The Valiant sustained minor damage. Coalition forces suffered no reported casualties either. Captain Webb was explicit about targeting only weapons and propulsion systems. A wise decision, said President Elijah Carter. What's the coalition's response? They've requested a diplomatic meeting at neutral coordinates. However, our intelligence suggests they're also mobilizing additional forces. Of course they are, Minister Parker said dryly. No one likes discovering they're not at the top of the food chain. The president's expression remained serious. What they don't know is that the Valiant isn't our only ship with these capabilities. Bennett nodded. The Jupiter Defense Fleet has been on standby since first contact. 6 vessels with Hyperion drive technology are ready to deploy if needed. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, the president said. Humanity has had enough wars on our own world. We didn't go to the stars looking for more. He turned to the view screen showing images of the Valiant. What do we know about the coalition itself? If we're facing 27 species, we need to understand what we're dealing with. Bennett activated a holographic display. This is where it gets interesting. Our analysts have been studying the data sent by the Valiant. The coalition appears to function as a hierarchical structure, with older species holding more influence than newer ones. They have standard protocols for incorporating new spacefaring races, usually involving a period of observation and guided development before full membership. Guided development? Asked one counselor. Based on the translated communications, it seems they control how quickly member species advance technologically. They've been doing this for thousands of years. The president frowned. So they expected to find a primitive human outpost, not a warship with technology beyond their understanding. Exactly. And that's why they responded with force rather than diplomacy. According to their worldview, we shouldn't exist as we are. Back aboard the HSS Valiant, Captain Webb reviewed the damage reports in her ready room. The ship had performed admirably, but the Hyperion drive needed extensive recalibration before it could be used again. A soft chime announced a visitor. Enter, Webb called. Lieutenant Kate Porter stepped into the room, carrying a data tablet. Captain, I've completed my analysis of the coalition communications we intercepted during the battle. Webb gestured to a chair. What have you found? It's fascinating, Porter said, her eyes bright with discovery. The coalition has been operating in this sector for over 5,000 years, but not as equals. The founding species, these Drath, established a system where they control the technological development of all other species. Control how? By classifying technologies into tiers and restricting access based on how long a species has been part of the coalition. It's essentially technological privilege based on seniority. Webb considered this. So when they encountered us, we broke their entire paradigm, Porter confirmed. According to their records, we should still be limited to our solar system, maybe early interstellar flight. Instead, we have technology they consider restricted to the highest tiers of development. That explains their hostility, Webb said. We threaten their entire power structure. There's more, Porter added. I found references to specimen collection from human outposts. Captain, I think the coalition is responsible for those missing colony ships. Webb's expression hardened. They've been abducting our people? Porter nodded grimly. For study. It's apparently standard procedure for newly discovered species. Before Webb could respond, the ship's comm system activated. Captain, Rodriguez's voice came through. We're receiving a transmission from Earth Command. Priority 1. Minutes later, Webb had her new orders. The Valiant would proceed to the diplomatic meeting, but 6 additional human warships were moving into position throughout coalition space. Humanity was prepared to negotiate, but from a position of strength. On her private terminal, Webb received one more message, this one directly from Admiral Bennett. Eleanor, it read, what you discovered changes everything. For 20 years, we've known we weren't alone. The observation post we found near Jupiter told us that much. The crashed scout ship on Mars gave us the beginnings of the Hyperion technology. But now we know who's been watching us, and it's time they learned we've been watching back. The fate of human expansion into the stars rests on your next moves. Make them count. Webb sat back, absorbing the implications. The Coalition had been studying humanity like specimens in a zoo. Now the specimens had broken out of their cage, armed with technology the zookeepers didn't understand. In her quarters, elsewhere on the ship, Lieutenant Porter reviewed her data again. Something nagged at her analytical mind. If the Coalition truly controlled technological development so strictly, how had humans advanced so quickly? The Mars discovery explained some of it, but not all. And if humans could adapt alien technology so effectively, what might happen if real diplomatic relations were established? Not subjugation as the Coalition intended, but true exchange of ideas. Perhaps, Porter thought, there was a better path forward than military confrontation, if she could convince Captain Webb to consider it. The HSS Valiant approached Xandaria, the Coalition capital world. Unlike its previous stealthy movements, the human ship now flew openly, its presence a deliberate statement. Captain Eleanor Webb stood on the bridge, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on the view screen. They have detected us, Williams reported from Tactical. Planetary defenses are activating. Webb nodded calmly. As expected, Rodriguez opened a channel. Communications Officer Rodriguez worked her console. Channel. Open, Captain. Xandarian Defense Command. This is Captain Eleanor Webb of the HSS Valiant. We come under diplomatic authority to address the Coalition Council. We are transmitting our credentials now. For several tense moments, there was no response. Then, a voice replied, HSS Valiant, you are cleared to approach. Follow the designated flight path precisely. Any deviation will be considered hostile action. Acknowledge their instructions, Webb ordered, and maintain passive scans only. Let's not give them any reason to feel threatened. As the Valiant descended toward the massive Coalition capital city, Webb turned to Porter. Are you ready, Lieutenant? Porter nodded, though her expression showed tension. As ready as I can be, Captain. Remember, we're not just representing the Valiant now. We represent all of humanity. Webb straightened her formal dress uniform. Let's make a good impression. The Valiant landed on a massive platform adjacent to the Council Tower, a spiraling structure that rose over a kilometer into the sky. A delegation of Coalition officials waited, surrounded by security forces. Webb, Porter, and Rodriguez stepped off the ship, the only humans on a world of aliens. The gravity was slightly stronger than Earth's, the air richer in oxygen. Above them, the sky held a greenish tint. Admiral Zekathol stepped forward, his 4 eyes fixed on Webb. Captain, the Council awaits. Webb nodded politely. Admiral, thank you for arranging this meeting. They were escorted through vast corridors filled with representatives of countless species. Many stopped to stare at the humans, creatures that had suddenly upset the established order of their civilization. In the Grand Council chamber, thousands of representatives fell silent as the humans entered. Supreme Counselor Mox sat on an elevated platform, flanked by the senior representatives of the founding species. Captain Eleanor Webb of Earth, Mox announced, his ancient voice carrying throughout the chamber. You stand before the Galactic Coalition, an alliance that has maintained peace among the stars for 5,000 years. Peace that your actions have now threatened. Webb stepped forward, her voice steady. With respect, Counselor, we defended ourselves against unprovoked aggression. The Coalition vessels scanned our ship without permission and referred to containment protocols before we fired a single shot. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Mox raised a hand for silence. You claim defense, yet your single vessel disabled 15 of our ships using technology you should not possess. Explain how humans advanced so quickly. Webb had prepared for this question. Necessity, Counselor. 20 years ago, we discovered an alien observation post near Jupiter, our largest planet. Shortly after, we found a crashed scout ship on Mars. We realized we were being watched, studied like animals in a zoo. We adapted and prepared, not knowing when first contact would come, or if it would be peaceful. The chamber erupted in shocked conversations. Webb continued, her voice rising above the noise. But today I come with evidence of actions far more serious than observation. She nodded to Porter, who activated a holographic display. Images appeared. In the center of the chamber, human colony ships being captured by coalition vessels. Records of human specimens being taken for study. Lists of experiments performed. These are our people, Webb said, her voice now hard. Citizens of Earth and its colonies who disappeared, who were taken by your ships for study without consent. In human terms, this is kidnapping, an act of war. The council chamber fell completely silent. Admiral Zakthul stepped forward. These were standard containment protocols for pre-spaceflight species. Nothing unusual. Nothing unusual. Webb's eyes flashed with controlled anger. You abducted our people, experimented on them, treated them as specimens rather than intelligent beings worthy of respect. Before Zakthul could respond, Science Officer, Vrina moved to the center of the chamber. The captain speaks truth. Our protocols, unchanged for millennia, have become our excuse for treating emerging species as lesser beings. We have forgotten our founders' original vision of guidance and protection. Mock studied the human captain thoughtfully. You could have responded with destruction. Your technology clearly gave you that capability. Why didn't you? Because humanity has seen enough war, Webb replied simply. We came to space hoping to find friendship, not conflict. We still hope for that, despite these inauspicious beginnings. Webb activated a communication device. The chamber's main display showed a star map of coalition space. 6 points of light blinked into existence. Human warships now positioned near critical coalition worlds. We come prepared for either outcome, Webb continued. These ships all carry the same technology as the Valiant. They moved into position while the coalition was focused on us. They await my command. Gasps and shouts filled the chamber. Mox raised both hands for silence. You threaten us with destruction? He asked. Webb shook her head. No. I demonstrate that we could have chosen destruction but didn't. Instead, I stand before you offering a choice. Continue treating humanity as a species to be contained and studied, leading to inevitable conflict, or recognize us as equals with a place at this table. Lieutenant Porter stepped forward. Supreme Counselor, I've studied coalition history extensively. Your civilization began as a mutual defense pact between the Drath and the Lorani, equals protecting each other from outside threats. Only later did it become hierarchical, with newer species subjugated rather than welcomed. Vrina nodded in agreement. She is correct. We have strayed from our original purpose. Mox sat in silence for long moments, his ancient eyes studying the humans. Finally, he spoke. In 5,000 years, no species has challenged the coalition as yours has. No species has advanced so quickly or shown such capability. It is uncomfortable. Growth often is, Webb replied. A hint of what might have been a smile crossed Mox's alien features. Indeed. He turned to the assembled council. I propose we recognize humanity as a sovereign spacefaring civilization with protected status. All human specimens will be returned immediately. A diplomatic exchange will begin to establish formal relations. The vote was not unanimous, but the majority prevailed. As the session ended, Webb, Porter, and Rodriguez were escorted to a diplomatic reception area. It worked, Porter said quietly. They're actually treating us as equals. For now, Webb cautioned. This is just the beginning. Her communication device activated. Admiral Bennett's voice came through. Phase 1 complete, Captain. Well done. Webb smiled slightly. Thank you, Admiral. Humanity has its seat at the table. Later, as the Valiant prepared to depart with formal diplomatic recognition and the coordinates where the human specimens would be returned, Science Officer Vrina approached Webb privately. There is one question that troubles our scientists, she said. The technology you possess, it advances along lines we never considered possible. Your thinking is different. Webb nodded. Perhaps that's humanity's real strength. Not our weapons or shields, but our adaptability. Our willingness to find new paths when old ones are blocked. A dangerous quality, Vrina observed. It can be, Webb agreed, but also valuable. Perhaps your coalition could benefit from some fresh perspectives after 5,000 years. As the Valiant lifted off from Xandaria, Webb watched the planet recede on the view screen. Humanity's first official contact with alien life hadn't gone as hoped, but it had ended better than feared. The galaxy was bigger and more complex than humans had imagined. There would be challenges ahead, treaties to negotiate, relationships to build. But the first crucial step had been taken. Humanity would not be contained or controlled. They would find their own path among the stars as they always had on Earth. Set course for home, Webb ordered. We have a lot to report. As the Valiant accelerated away from Xandaria, Coalition scientists continued studying recordings of the battle. One remarked to another, "The truly remarkable thing isn't what they did, but what they chose not to do. They could have destroyed us all." "Perhaps," his colleague replied. "That is what makes them truly dangerous, and truly worthy of respect." 6 hours passed quickly aboard the HSS Valiant. The crew worked with focused intensity, preparing for the approaching Coalition fleet. In the engine room, Chief Engineer Alan Frost and Dr. Olivia Patel made final adjustments to the Hyperion drive. "The field generators are aligned," Dr. Patel said, her fingers moving quickly over the control panel. A slender woman with intense focus, she had helped design the experimental drive system. "Power levels stable at 87%. Frost nodded, wiping sweat from his forehead. "The system was never meant to be used like this. Lab tests are one thing, but in actual combat, it will work," Patel assured him. "The math is solid." On the bridge, Captain Webb sat in her command chair, outwardly calm despite the tension tightening her shoulders. Lieutenant Commander Williams stood at the tactical station, running simulations. "They're approaching in attack formation," Williams reported. 15 ships, just as we were warned. Communications Officer Rodriguez turned from her station. "Captain, we're being hailed." Webb nodded. On screen, the view screen flickered to show a Coalition officer with gray skin and 6 eyes, arranged in a circle around what might have been a mouth. The translation system identified him as Fleet Commander Grax. "Human vessel," Grax said, his voice translated into flat English. "You have violated Coalition space and attacked our ships. Power down all systems and prepare to be boarded. You have 1 standard hour to comply." Webb leaned forward. "Fleet Commander, this is Captain Eleanor Webb of the HSS Valiant. We fired only after your vessel scanned us without permission, which is considered a hostile act in human space. We seek peaceful resolution." Grax's 6 eyes blinked in unison. "Your primitive understanding is irrelevant. The Coalition determines the rules of engagement in this sector. 1 hour, Captain. Then we will take your ship by force." The transmission ended. Webb turned to her officers. "Well, diplomacy seems off the table." "They're surrounding us," Williams reported. "Standard containment pattern." Webb activated her comm. "Engineering? Status of the Hyperion drive?" "Ready, Captain." Frost's voice replied. "But remember, we've never field-tested the temporal aspects in combat conditions." "Understood." Webb looked at her bridge crew. "This is what we trained for. Lieutenant Porter, are all record systems active? Earth Command will want a full accounting of this encounter." Porter nodded from her intelligence station. "All systems recording, Captain." Webb stood, straightening her uniform. "Battle stations. Prepare to activate the Hyperion drive on my mark." Throughout the ship, crew members moved to their assigned positions. Unlike the chaos that might be expected before battle, the Valiant's crew displayed practiced efficiency. In the engineering section, Frost and Patel monitored the Hyperion drive's core, a sphere of swirling blue-white energy contained within multiple field generators. Temporal field stabilizers online, Patel reported. Frost checked his own readouts. Ready to initiate on the captain's order. On the Coalition command ship, Fleet Commander Grax watched the human vessel with disdain. Their weapons are primitive compared to ours, his tactical officer reported. Our simulations show they cannot possibly withstand a coordinated attack from all 15 ships. Begin the attack, Grax ordered. Target their propulsion systems first, then weapons. I want that ship intact for study. The Coalition fleet moved in perfect unison, weapons charging. The first salvo fired, energy beams and plasma torpedoes, streaking toward the Valiant. On the human ship, Webb gave the order. Activate Hyperion drive. The drive core and engineering pulsed, and a wave of energy spread throughout the ship. To outside observers, the Valiant seemed to blur, becoming almost transparent. The Coalition weapons passed harmlessly through the space where the Valiant had been. The ship had not moved in the conventional sense, but rather shifted partially out of normal space-time. What happened? Demanded Grax, rising from his command chair. Where did they go? Unknown, Commander, his science officer replied, frantically checking sensors. They've disappeared from our scanning systems. Impossible. Nothing can... Grax never finished his sentence. The Valiant reappeared behind one of the Coalition vessels, weapons firing with surgical precision. The alien ship's engines went dark, its weapons systems disabled in seconds. Before the Coalition could respond, the Valiant vanished again, reappearing near another target. Aboard the human ship, the bridge crew worked with intense concentration. The Hyperion drive created localized time dilation fields, allowing the Valiant to effectively skip through moments in time, appearing to move at impossible speeds. Targeting solutions for ships 3 and 4, Williams called out, his hands dancing over his console. Webb nodded. Execute. Remember, disable only. No destruction if we can avoid it. The Valiant blinked out of normal space again, reappearing to fire on 2 more Coalition vessels before vanishing. The Coalition fleet fell into disarray, firing wildly at empty space. They cannot track us while we're in temporal shift, Porter reported. Their sensors aren't designed to detect objects moving through time as well as space. Webb watched the tactical display with intense focus. Status of the Hyperion drive? Holding stable, Frost's voice came over the comm. But we can't maintain this indefinitely, Captain. The power drain is significant. Understood. How many more jumps can we safely make? Maybe 10 maximum. Webb nodded. Then we need to make them count. Williams, target the command ships next. The battle continued for 17 minutes, though from the Valiant's perspective with the time dilation effects it felt much longer. The human ship appeared and disappeared across the battlefield, firing with precision at engines, weapons arrays, and communication systems. The Coalition ships tried to adapt, firing in patterns to catch the Valiant when it reappeared, but the human vessel never materialized where expected. On the 9th jump, the Valiant shuddered violently. Drive stability dropping, Frost reported urgently. We're pushing it beyond design limits. 1 more jump, Webb ordered. Bring us alongside the command ship. The Valiant made its final temporal jump, appearing directly next to Grax's flagship. Instead of firing, however, Webb ordered communications. Opened. Coalition flagship, this is Captain Webb. 9 of your vessels are disabled but with life support intact. We could have destroyed your entire fleet. Stand down now. On his command ship, Fleet Commander Grax stared at the view screen in disbelief. His tactical display showed most of his fleet drifting powerless. The human ship was now close enough that he could see details of its hull through the viewport. What kind of technology is this? He whispered. His tactical officer had no answer. Coalition, flagship, Webb's voice came again. We have 1 torpedo locked on your bridge. Your shields cannot stop it. I ask again, stand down. Grax looked at his remaining ships. Only 5 still had functioning weapons, and they were scattered across the battlefield. The human vessel had outmaneuvered his entire fleet. Stand down, he ordered finally. All ships, cease fire. Aboard the Valiant, the crew maintained their battle stations, watchful for any trick. They're powering down weapons, Williams confirmed. Webb nodded. Good. Rodriguez, open a channel to all Coalition vessels. When the channel was open, Webb spoke clearly. "This is Captain Eleanor Webb of the HSS Valiant. We did not seek this conflict. We defended ourselves against aggression. Remember this day. Humanity wishes peace with the Galactic Coalition, but we will not be subjugated. We are sending coordinates for a neutral location where we can meet to discuss terms. The choice for war or peace is yours." As the transmission ended, Webb turned to her crew. "Stand down from battle stations. Engineering, take the Hyperion drive offline and begin diagnostics." "Captain," Porter said quietly, "the Coalition will not forget this defeat easily." Webb's expression was solemn. "I know. But perhaps now they'll be willing to talk instead of simply trying to contain us." Across the battlefield, Science Officer Vrina watched from one of the undamaged ships, her eyes wide with wonder and fear. The humans had technology that defied Coalition understanding. They could have destroyed the entire fleet, yet chose restraint. The Council would need to reconsider everything they thought they knew about this species, and Vrina suspected humanity was only beginning to reveal its true capabilities.